Oh, welcome to the Sharpe Show. So happy to have you with me this evening, but past 8 p.m. on the East Coast. Yes, it's 8 p.m. because Monday, I always do a show a little bit later on Mondays. And today, yes, I'm doing yet another late show, but this week I'll be doing the Red 7. Tomorrow, I will be doing my 1 p.m. radio show. So back in action, as is the norm. Today, I wanted to bring up something for a very different reason. Many of you have heard me often talk about the idea that I am concerned that we as Americans are not, are basically not, uh, we're not having children. We're not getting together. We're not having children, those things. And that is a concern of mine that I have. And I brought up more than once. And now it's popular thing called the pronatalism movement about people having more children. But why would CNN care about something like this? You might think, if you spend any time on the internet, that they're worried about whether or not this is a real problem, right? Whether or not, population collapse is real, or the opposite, we have too many people on the planet, or whatever is your back and forth. Now, that's not why. They care because Elon Musk cares. I wish I was joking. I'm not. And there are a couple of things I want to bring up about. This is an actual issue that we should be concerned about for many different reasons. And people, of course, take this issue and then put it directly into politics, right? So it's because Trump, or it's because poor people, or whatever. They make up that reason immediately. But let me bring up what CNN says, because CNN, of course, has it. It's a short video, but this is why they care. Not because kids, not because family, not because that means nothing. They care because, you guessed it, Elon Musk cares. So yes, that's what I care.
Tonight, this message is gaining steam.
Gaining steam. And what does the bottom say? Musk, Vance, seen as icons in movement that wants more babies. Okay?
So let me say very simply,
Okay.
I want more babies in the United States of America.
Well, it's led to what's called the pronatalist movement, and it's getting more popular because of messages from Vice President Vance and Elon Musk.
Okay, that's not true. She said that because she wants that to be her issue. She says that's the reason why it's popular. It's been popular before them. That's not the reason. That's why she noticed it, because to her, and this is the part that bothers me when you watch her, again, she's supposed to be a journalist. And every time I go to CNN, I have to put journalist in quotes because none of them actually are. But they're supposed to be, and they pretend to be. This is why I get angry at CNN so much. MSNBC and Fox News, they're open. Like, look, we're on the left and the right, and that's it. CNN still tries to pretend that they're not. And boy, that does bother me. I know maybe it shouldn't right by now. Maybe it shouldn't. I'm with you. I probably shouldn't. But it does. It does. It bothers me that they just keep pretending like they're not utterly and totally biased. Her utter disdain for this, her dismissiveness of this, and for the wrong reason, right? I get if you think you're a crackpot, you shouldn't have more kids, too many kids on the planet. Okay, that's a logical answer. You can go back and forth. I'm okay with that. That doesn't mean you would have disdain like that. Or the reverse. We need to have more babies because we need to make sure that we have, we can support our elderly or whatever. Okay, great. I mean, these are arguments that make sense. You can go back and forth either way. But she's just like, because Trump.
Who, of course, has at least 13 children.
Who, of course, has 13 children. So therefore, by default, what he says is stupid.
With multiple women. CNN's Mina.
Multiple women because he's a bad guy. Right? Why would you say that? Because you wanted to make sure, again, I tell you this all the time, and it's constant. If you're left-leaning and you're a media outlet, you always begin with insult. And you guys think I'm joking. You see it every time. Because you have to make sure you dismiss anything being said because it might make sense to you. And we don't want you to have any actual independent thought that you might make some sense. So I need to insult it and dismiss it immediately. This way you can, of course it's garbage. Elon Musk, 13 kids with 4 women. Clearly everything he says is wrong. Is he abandoning his kids? Are these women, is he forcing himself on these women?
Durson is out front at the 2025 Natal Conference.
Do you see that NATO conference? You see that? Yeah, look at that face. See these crazy, stupid people? She, by the way, is a journalist.
Because yes, there is a conference.
Why wouldn't there be?
Raise your hand if you are a mom or a dad in the room here tonight. This is the war for civilization, and we are going to win it one life at a time.
We're here at NatalCon, which is a gathering of about 200 people from all over the world who have come here because they all feel very strongly that the world needs more babies.
Now, why is this, by default, in her eyes, clearly a bad thing? All right, and be clear. I don't mean that this is let me be very clear. When I say bad, I don't mean the idea that, hey, wait a minute, I don't like this idea. I think it's wrong. That kind of bad I get. But that's not where they're going. They're saying this is bad because it's evil or wrong, not because it's not the right idea. You disagree with it. No, because these are bad people. That's where this is going. I'm not even joking with that.
Civilizational catastrophe coming, and the way to solve it is to have sex. Like, that's got to be the easiest pitch in history.
Birth rates around the world are plummeting, and they think this is the issue of our time.
Did you see how dismissive? Birth rates are plummeting. This is the issue of our time. Okay, if they're correct, I'm not taking a stance on this. I'm saying where their head is, right? And you should always have empathy for people unless you assume they're evil. They assume everybody there is evil, so they don't have empathy. But you have empathy. If they're right, or if they think they're right, that population is declining to where it's crashing, if they're right, it's the end of the human race, isn't it? So of course it would be the issue, right? So if you believe that, and clearly these people came from all over the world to come to NatalCon, whatever it is, right? They came here, so they clearly believe or care. So yes, that would make total sense. Why would you fly X thousand miles to this event if you thought, whatevs, you wouldn't do it? You stay home and watch Netflix or whatever, Amazon Prime, or this show that you should be watching, right? You'd be doing that. You would only come here if you believed it. So why must you dismiss them?
Massive conversation, and that's why we're here.
We need to encourage more people to get married and have kids. We need those people to be the people of the future.
Many
See that? Future of the future. There we go.
countries are no longer having enough kids to replace their population.
Okay, so they admit it. They say, this is a problem. So again, if you can show this is true, why are you so mad at them? That's the point. Don't be mad at them. Just say, hey, this is a problem. We see it. These people think this. I'm a reporter. I'll report the news. I'll let you see what they think and what other people think, and you can decide. No, I'm going to make sure I dismiss them so you don't agree with these crazy people, weirdos. And Elon Musk, that guy, I don't agree with him.
Some experts predict this will cause labor shortages and inflation, permanently changing the economy. The people most passionate about this call themselves pronatalists.
People are like, why are high fertility people always so weird?
High fertility people. Okay, at least he self-identifies that way. I'm okay with that. You want to call yourself that? You are a high fertility person. Good on you.
Malcolm and Simone Collins have 4 kids, soon to be 5, and are some of the loudest advocates for pronatalism.
True. They have a whole
What we've
series
seen
on
is
it.
pronatalism and demographic collapse have become the global warming of the right. Some of the first people who really
That, by the way, was brilliant. He said it's the global warming of the right. Nicely done.
recognize the scale of the problem are major players in the White House right now, like JD Vance and Elon Musk.
The birth rate is very low in almost every country. And unless that changes, civilization will disappear.
Elon Musk's fixation with population.
And of course, his fixation, they have to say that. And they have to show him with the cheese on his head, right? So they must dismiss. This is not done by mistake. I'll be very clear. This is purposely made to dismiss and to don't listen to him. He's evil.
Population collapse has pushed pronatalism into the spotlight. His tweets about NatalCon helped double attendance for this year's event, where the tickets cost $1,000.
Yes, I spent all of my savings coming here, actually.
Do you want to have kids?
Yes.
You don't?
Okay. This dude dropped his savings to come here. Do you want to have kids? Yes. He obviously wants a family, right? This dude clearly wants a family. And here's his chick next to him, dissing him, making him look like an idiot. Why? There's a dude who wants a family, and he's prepared to drop $1,000 to come out and talk about it. Good for him. Again, you can think he's wrong. Why the constant dismissal? He's a young guy. In today's world, where in America, 8 million men have checked out who don't want anything. Don't want a girlfriend, don't want a marriage, don't want a kid, don't want a job. They're checking out left and right. Here I got this young man who's like, I would like to have some kids. And she's like, loser. Look at her face. Loser, you. Let the man have some kids. He wants some kids. And if he finds a lovely lady who wants to have some kids, leave him alone.
Have kids?
No.
How many do you want to have?
Well, minimum 5. I want to have my first at 22. And then I want to have
you got to get on that.
Yeah, I know.
Organizers said they heard a lot of interest in matchmaking, so they gave yellow wristbands to singles.
So now they're matchmaking. Why would this be a bad place, right? Clearly, if you're a woman and you go to NatalCon, right, and you want to put your yellow band on, you are ready to have kids and get married, have a relationship. You're ready for it, right? Good for you, right? And he's got his yellow band. He's ready to go. Good for you. Hopefully you think he's attractive enough and there's a match and people start getting together. Wouldn't that be nice? No. I'm CNN. I'm making a nice, hefty dump on everything because
goals to help them find each other.
Elon Musk.
You have a yellow wristband.
Yes.
So you're
and
you're open to mingling.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Have you met anybody good?
I'm not sure if you can tell.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of lads here. There's not that many ladies.
The speakers are largely dry economist types, focused on tweaks to boost birth rates, from tax credits to housing. But politically, the vibe is firmly right-wing.
Which, see, that's your problem right there. See, anything that is right-wing is by default bad. Anything that Elon Musk says, we know the rules already, right? In the past, it was always orange man bad, which will always be there. But now we also have spaceman bad. We have both now. Now that the left, not the left, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. I shouldn't say the left. That's not true. Democrats. I should be clear on that. I don't want to insult people from the left. Let me insult Democrats because Democrats leadership needs to be insulted. Democratic leadership had the opportunity. We got our butt kicked. Orange man bad didn't work. Why don't we come up with better policies, better ideas, and better communication? No. We could do that, but that's not work. What else can we do? Spaceman bad. Way easier. We don't have to have any policies, no better communication. We'll just yell spaceman bad. Done. And that was basically it. That was it. Spaceman bad is what a Democratic establishment decided to do instead of like real policies, real communication, real connection. Spaceman bad. And CNN, which is literally their mouthpiece, said, okay, that's what we do. And we do a spaceman bad. Spaceman bad it is.
Marginal people need to go back to the margins.
We want to raise families. The left is raising pride flags over cat shelters.
In 2024 actually did have a slight uptick in births. Bad news. It was just the anchor babies from the illegal immigrants.
It's pretty.
Now they showed, of course, the right wing, which is anchor babies and anti-trans stuff. I get it. That's not a good look. They're not wrong. It's not a good look. It is not a good look. But it doesn't mean everybody there cares about that. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, they're right. This part's real. The problem is, it's not just about that. That's the problem.
Difficult to draw a neat tight circle around everybody here. The far right or the extreme right, like we would like to have more babies, but we would like to have more of our babies. On the other end, people like more babies are always good, whether it's babies or immigrants. And the other axis, trad Catholics, Mormons, and then like a kind of tech bro or tech futurist.
See, she's admitting it. She's saying there are some people who are like, we just want babies. And there's some who are like, we want our babies. So that part exists too, right? But is there any difference, to be very fair, when you have people, for example, like my AG, my attorney general, AG in New York doesn't mean attorney general. AG in New York means aspiring governor. My AG in New York says things like, we we have to get rid of Trump because he's too pale, too male, and too stale. Right? Isn't that what they said? Yes. That's true. Yes. That's all I'm saying.
Genetic selection of embryos, trying to refine the quality of the babies that are born.
Because the Collinses are building their family through IVF, using experimental testing to rank embryos for traits from health risks to intelligence, they get one of the biggest criticisms of pronatalism.
Yep.
That it's code for eugenics.
Eugenics is when you say, these are good traits, these are bad traits.
This is just people choosing among their own embryos. We're not talking about.
So her argument here is, and this also, not a good look. See, nothing wrong with this. It's not a good look, right? But it's like a 6-minute segment, and 4 minutes is all the bad stuff, right? And there's no good stuff. They don't put any good stuff. So she's saying it's eugenics. Is it eugenics? This is an argument. Again, why aren't you having this argument? This would be a valid argument if you were to say, hey, wait a minute, I think it's morally wrong, not legally wrong, because it's your body, do as you think. But if your argument is a moral one, I'm okay with that idea, right? You have a moral argument. I think it's wrong to choose which of my embryos is a better embryo to, bring to term or to attempt to bring to term. Okay, that's an argument. You could see that. Personally, I wouldn't. I'd be like, just have babies. I'm fine. Whichever one you want. I don't mind. I'm not going to fight that. But I understand how somebody could. That makes total sense. It's a fine argument to have. And maybe we should have that argument back and forth. But she's saying, her argument is, it's eugenics when I'm deciding, which people can breed and which people can't breed. All those things, right? She's saying, no, I've selected my husband. And it's all our eggs. We're just deciding from the eggs that we pull out which ones we want to bring to term. Is that really terrible? I mean, maybe, but it's not what they're saying, of course, Hitler. That's what they're saying, of course, right? Only blonde-haired, blue-eyed Germans. That's what they're trying to say. That's not what they're saying. That's not what they're saying.
Out sterilizing people or all the classic problems that are out there with eugenics.
Ahead of the conference, press coverage called out some speakers as race science promoters and eugenics.
Of course. Again, U.S. Natalist Conference to host race science promoters and eugenics. Of course. Why? Because every single time they start with the insult. That's how it starts. You start with the insult. And there it is. Immediately. Right? They're not saying, hey, there's this conference. No. Boom. And then the second part, linked to far-right politics. By default, wrong. By default, evil. By default. Why would you go to this thing? By default.
Geneticists. And students accused the event of hosting Nazis.
There we go. Of course. I want to have lots of children. By default. There we go.
Criticism organizer Kevin Dolan dismissed.
You can't be governed by people calling you names. I think that these ideas, they're not going to come from people who don't want to hurt any feelings.
Do you feel like there's a risk of alienating people with the kind of speakers you've selected? And
alienating people because they're dangerous. So don't let the people speak at your conference because people will be alienated. The people who think you're evil and Nazis, they might be alienated. The people who don't care about pronatalism, they might be alienated. The people who think you're stupid and crazy, they might be alienated. But because they're us, you should kowtow to us anyway. I'm not. That's what she's actually thinking. I'm not joking.
That tenor?
Of course.
And is that a risk?
He's like, yeah. These people hate me. They write notes calling me a Nazi. They write notes. Yeah, of course I'm going to alienate them. Sure.
For the larger cause?
I mean, some of those people are polarizing. They're my friends. And I'm not going to chuck them under the bus.
We can't let the right own things that are that fundamental.
Paul Constance was the only liberal we met the whole weekend.
I'm here because I think it's a really big topic, and progressives need to be in the conversation.
Why?
Yes. She's mad at that. She's like, why would you do? Our job is to just insult them and dismiss them. That's her job, idiot. Get with the program. We're not here to talk about stuff. We're not here to solve problems. What's wrong with you? Our job is to insult, disgrace, disrespect them. This way, no one will listen to them and take them seriously. Wow. What's wrong with you? Somebody arrest this guy.
Why is this such a big deal to you?
See?
So I have kids in their 20s. Young people today feel very hesitant or unable to form families. It's very easy to talk about cat ladies and to imply that people on the left don't care about kids. It's much harder to actually put forward policies that would make everyone of any political stripe be more inclined to form a family.
Could you imagine if more people were like this guy? Could you imagine if more Americans were like this guy? He's like, I'm a lefty, and so what? That doesn't mean I hate people on the right. Who cares? I'm a lefty. I still care about families. I still care about kids. I still care about my kids. I still care about the world. So I'm a lefty. So what? Wouldn't it be nice if more people were that way versus I'm a lefty, therefore orange man bad, space man bad. I can't go here because that's platforming. I can't talk to them. Everyone who I don't like is a Nazi. I'd like more of this guy. Let's get a whole lot of this guy.
I think that one of the things that often gets skipped over in any discussion of natalism today is kind of the actual lives of women who make decisions about whether or not to bring a child into the world. Don't forget about the ladies. Don't forget about the people who have the babies.
Yes. Now, that part, the end actually was decent, right? They showed a guy who's like, hey, I don't agree with these right-wingers, but we all care, right? Number one. Number two, she says, how about the ladies? They're the ones deciding to bring babies into the world or not, right? Kind of, them, right? So shouldn't this be about that? Yeah, kind of should be. Absolutely.
And I think you can see that crowd is pretty homogenous, very white, largely male.
They had to go there. They had to go there. Whether you agree with this or not, I'm going to show you another video here, which is going to be the way this should have been done. Whether you agree with this concept or not, whether you think it's good or bad or not, it's serious. It's true. It's happening. It's real. And it's going to affect our economy in some way, shape, or form. And we have to find policies and issues, that guy brought it up, to somehow deal with this issue. We have to. So why would you make it a race thing? Why would you make it a gender thing? Why would you do that? You're CNN. You're supposed to be journalists. You're not. You wonder why your channel's dying. If anyone from CNN's watching, this is Exhibit A. This is why your channel's dying, and it's literally dying because of garbage like this, right? Garbage like this. Literally another anchor on this show, useless, worthless, garbage, and thinks she's the smartest thing in the world. If this anchor, literally, is it Erin Burnett? Is that who I think that's who it is, right? If she goes off on her own, she's starving. No one watches her. She's only getting paid because she's on CNN.
Heard many of the speakers had to drop out because they were pregnant, so lost a lot of women that way.
Whoa. So she then explains, well, a lot of the speakers couldn't come because they were pregnant. Well, then why would you say it's all white males?
A lot of men told us they were there repping their wives because, when you have a big family like that, you can't travel to a conference. It becomes very expensive and someone has to do that childcare. So I think this lack of diversity kind of shows this is a self-selecting group. This message is kind of staying within these bubbles for now. And while these people are quite panicked about.
All right. You think it's in bubbles. If any of you care about this, and some of you may, some of you may not. And if any of you care about this, just Google fertility rate. Google dropping fertility rate across the country. Google the end of Korea. I'm not joking. Korea has the lowest birth rate in the entire world. And some people believe that Korea is already finished. Like as a nation, you cannot recover from this. As a nation, it is now in decline forever. That is what some people believe. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that is what some people believe, which means it's an issue. Because even if they're wrong, it's still obviously a problem. And she's like, it's just in a bubble. It's like dumb Elon Musk people. No, I've spoken about this many times.
A lot of experts we spoke to for this piece said collapse is really a little overblown.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of experts we spoke to. Yeah. Which ones did you speak to? Which ones did you speak to? It's overblown. It's not overblown. I'm going to show you a video. Once again, CNN, demonstrably, clearly wrong. And easily you could have figured this out, Mina, if you were an actual journalist and not just a hit piece specialist. If you were actually a journalist, you or your intern or your producer would have just done a simple Google search, and you would have found tons of data showing this is not overblown. This is a real thing. America only is able to have a decent, and still bad, but decent child fertility rate because of immigration. That's it. Why do you think all those immigrants came? Does anybody honestly think it was a mistake? It was not a mistake. It was not a mistake. Someone got to fix the AI robots, and American men are checking out, and American women don't want to do it. If you think I'm making that up, again, a simple Google search will show you that I'm correct.
It is amazing though, watching him. It's such an incredible report, but it did stand out so many white men. I mean, that
great report, but so many white men. She had to make that happen. That to me actually is the worst part. Not that I don't like white men. I don't care. I know lots of white men. They're fine. That isn't the issue. The issue is, why is it about that? Let me grab a couple comments if I could. All you guys are commenting. I do want to go through that. And I have another one I want to show you, which I think is pretty interesting, the way it probably should have been done. And by the way, if you like that and I have more, please click the button known as Lima, India, Kilo, Echo. You know the one I'm talking about. Click that button. Why? Because it makes Mr. Rhythm, Algo, that guy, Algo, he actually likes it very much. You click that button, then what does he do? He shares it around more. Please do that if you can, right? Please. Also, repost this, reshare this if you can. It does matter. Every repost put into a Facebook group, repost it on X, repost it on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever. It does matter. Please do so. If you have not followed me on Facebook, if you have not followed me on X and Rumble, please go do so. Subscribe on YouTube and click that all notifications button. It does matter. If you want your comment to go right to the front, super chat me if you're on YouTube, or rank me if you are on Rumble. If you want to become a member, that helps tremendously. Membership is key. $49 per month. Click that join button on YouTube, or click the subscribe button during the live on Rumble to become a member. Why does that matter? Well, number one, membership means it supports the channel so I don't have to work as much, and I can actually come in on time more than I do, and maybe do more shows, which is good too. Do some more Rumble shows, which is also good if we can do that also. It does matter if you can. So please do that. But not just that, you get a benefit. What benefit do I get? Next Friday, May 2nd, a couple of days, I'm popping stuff out tonight, asking people who want to be on. I have one already set. I have 2 or 3 more I'm gonna bring on. 2 more I'm gonna bring on until 3. I will have 4 of us on this Friday, May 2nd at 8 p.m. Members will be here on the show with me. We'll be talking about something. I'm not sure what yet, but I will come up with an answer as soon as I can. Not just that, members can submit videos for me to react to. Some of you have. I've been looking at them. I got to find ones that make sense. If your video is very long, some of you send me videos like 2 hours long. Unless you want me to do a 6-hour show, please tell me what part of that video you'd like me to look at, if that's the case. I hope that was clear with everything I talked about. No matter what, please click the button known as like. Joel rented me for $1 over on Rumble. Thank you so much. He says, making everything an ism or ist, modern journalistic practice. Correct. So it doesn't matter what you're saying. The person is an ist, or the thing is an ism, and therefore irrelevant. So just don't listen. That might make sense. I don't want you to make any sense. So let's make it an ist or an ism. And now, the person might be a phobe. Could be phobic. So it could be that too, but usually ist or ism. But if an ist or ism doesn't fit, make it a phobe or a phobic. That's the backup. Either one. You're always one of those two. So yes, all good. All righty. I think that does work here. Let me move on if I can to a couple of these comments. I appreciate these. Buiode says, as if paying for healthcare, housing, and food were enough. See, that's what everyone says. I hear that constantly. It's all about dollars. It is not. I'm going to show you a video about that. There's lots of poor people who can't pay for anything, who have tons of kids. That is not an issue. That is what that's how people make it political, right? So the right says it's because the gays and whatever they say, that's their reason, right? Everyone's trans, right? That's what the right says. And the left says, we got no money. Government needs to give us more money. And both are wrong. Those are not the reasons. And Larry, no. I got receipts. I will show you. It's not those two things. The right and the left are both wrong on this, which is normal. Usually they're wrong. I'm right. Duh. That's kind of how that works. So yes, of course. Phil says, be fruitful and multiply. The button known as Lima, India, Kilo Echo. Yes, do that. Yes, absolutely. So Shelly has a couple here. Let me see if I can grab Shelly. Thank you for being a member, Shelly. Historically, birth rates and childhood survival rates were essential to keep a nation safe and prosperous. In the advent of robots and AI, we may or may not need more children. She says, I'd like to live in an economy that has a stable economy for everyone so that people who want to have children can afford them, not just the wealthy people who will almost never help the poor. Well, here's the thing to remember, Shelly. Wealthy people tend to have less babies. So the wealthier you get, you tend to have less babies. That's not 100% robust tendency. Now, that's been changing recently. Very recently, it's been changing. But yes, and again, Shelly's right. If you go way back, like 10,000 years or something like that, right? You find that women would be pregnant like 18 times across their life. And out of that, 12 would actually have live births that would, survive. And like 6 would survive to adulthood. Like it was that bad because there'd be so much death and destruction. And the woman would be pregnant 18 times if she survived all 18, but her body was made for that. To this day, you still find, and many doctors will tell you this, the female body, generally speaking, is meant to be or built to be pregnant often. So women who tend to have trouble with their reproductive organs, yes, doctors will tell you this, there's data on this, is obviously people different, but the more times you're pregnant, the odds of you having problems with your reproductive organs go down because the body's meant to do that. But again, it isn't, those days, was that required anymore, right? What, 5,000, 10,000 years ago, to Shelley's point, yeah, you had to, even a couple hundred years ago, to be forward. Now, do you need to be pregnant 18 times? No. You want 3 kids? Probably pregnant 3 times, maybe 4, probably 3 for most people, right? It's getting pregnant that can be tough. But once you're pregnant, in most times in America, you're going to be okay. Most of the time. Not always, obviously. Most of the time, yes. Joel says the same thing. He says, I think the reduction in having children is economy related, is very expensive now, and it's an avoidable cost. It's the second part. That's the issue, not the first part. I know people say it's not the first part. I can't afford kids. That's an excuse people say after not having kids, right? They use it as a reason to say that that's not the case. That's not true. Again, very poor people still have kids throughout the world, even our country. They still have it. That has not stopped it. The data is just not there to validate that. People think that. It's just not true. Matt says, need more kids to have more working slaves than machine baby. Accurate, Matt. You're not wrong. And again, that's why some people are against this, because they think that's terrible. You're not wrong, right? And again, I'm going to cover that in a second. You're not wrong. So yes. All righty. Let me see here. Let me go down to a couple more of these. Matt's teasing me. Oh, welcome to the Sharpe Way Show. So happy to have Larry not break his streak of saying this at the beginning of every show. It's how I start the show. That's how I've been starting the show that way for probably years now. I don't know. It's been a long time. I've been starting that show for a long time. Yeah. Originally, I used to start the show with, what did I start with? Welcome to the Sharpe Way, something like that. I think I did something like that. But I always wanted to welcome people in. I forgot why. It just started doing this. So it just started. Michael says, fertility rates dropped in Japan 30 years ago. What happened? Their deficit exceeded GDP. Yes, and permanent stagnation. Right now, Japan's in permanent stagnation, and it's one of the oldest countries in the world. And eventually, their youth has stopped working and they've stopped dating because all they're doing is supporting the elderly. Yes. Remember, you at one point, you have far more people who are retired than working. Well, if they're still getting checks, somebody's paying for that. Somebody's paying for that. Yeah, that's how that works, right? At one point, someone is going, to do that. Kajon says, Joel beat me to it. Blessed be the fruits. Yes. Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you my call right now. And I'll bring this up because the actual answer is, and I'm going to show a video for this. It's not any of the things that we've talked about. The actual answer is, it's actually a grossly simple one. It is, we are not pair bonding. That's the issue. We're not pair bonding. Particularly women aren't pair bonding. Remember, women really are the ones who control whether or not they have children or not. and they're simply not pair bonding with men who they want to have children with. That's what's actually happening. And you can add other things as a reason as to why and why not. Oh, maybe. But it comes down to that piece. Women are not pair bonding with men that they want to have children with. That's what's happening. When a woman pair bonds with a man that she wants to have children with, she usually has kids with him. It's literally that simple. She usually does. Now, sometimes, sadly, for the family, the woman does it and then doesn't like him anymore, and then she's single mom, and then the family's broken up, and then it's divorce. That's the bad part. But that still is the issue. So I think in the long run, we're going to find us as a society begging to go back to a time, not this time, but to a time when families arranged marriages. I think that as a society, Western culture, over time, not tomorrow, obviously, but over time, when we realize how this is failing, that we're eventually going to ask our families to start getting back to, hey, I know a guy, I know a girl, you might get along. Family matchmaking, I think, is going to come back. You see it already happening in certain areas. It's going to happen again. I think as a society, we are going to move towards that. And then that kind of family pressure and family support will be better for families in general. And I think we're going to, I can't see another answer. It's that, or we all get robot lovers. I don't want the robot lover thing. So I'm going to go with that one, Keishan. I'm going with that one. Sarah says, Matt, I actually find myself adding Larryisms to my own speech, like to be forward. Well, you're not wrong. Well, there are lots of them. I just don't sound like a New Yorker, unfortunately. Or fortunately, that could be either. There's a reason why I use to be forward. There are two phrases you should use. To be forward or to be frank. Why? The other thing we use is honestly, to tell the truth. Those things cast doubt on your language. That's why when I teach communication, and I still do here or there, I would tell people to break those habits. When you go, well, honestly, you lied to me before. Now, that doesn't mean you were lying, but it casts doubt, right? To tell the truth doesn't mean you're lying, but it means you do lie. And it casts doubt in the back of someone's brain. If I want to be influential, I can't cast doubt. I've got to be forward or frank. So when most people say, to be honest, we don't actually mean that we weren't honest. What we actually mean is that we have achieved a level of rapport with the person where we feel comfortable not having a facade up anymore. That's what we actually mean when we say, to be honest, tell the truth. We mean that. So I say what I actually mean, which is I want to be forward. I don't want my facade up anymore. I don't need to have the politeness around me. I can just talk to you, Sarah. So I'm going to be forward or frank. That's why I use that phrase versus, to be honest, something like that. Actually, whatever other phrase we use. So I'm glad you noticed. I'm very glad you noticed. All right. Let me grab a couple more of these if I can. And John knew it. You called it. Spaceman bad. Accurate. You called it. Spaceman bad. And that is the way it works. So Mike says, first world nations are all having unsustainable birth rates. Trump is floating $5,000 to marry pregnant women as a stimulus. This isn't an Elon Musk or J.D. Vance issue. Yes, but then I can't say spaceman bad, Mike, right? See, you and your silly logic and like real answers. Okay, does that get me spaceman bad? No. Then does it really have value? No. So get with the program, Mike. This is why you're not on CNN. See, you wouldn't have said spaceman bad. You can't have a show there. That's your problem, Mike. But that $5,000, not going to work. Money does not work because it isn't about money. That's my point. Japanese been trying to pay people forever. Doesn't work. Koreans are paying. Doesn't work. Trump's saying will not work. It's not about the money. See, they're doing it because they think women are, well, if I had more money, it's not true. It is. There was a small baby boom during the COVID lockdowns in only one demographic. Female, obviously. Female, but it could be single or non-single, but generally females who were in the professional managerial class who worked from home. Yes. Some of those is minor baby bump. Why? Those women felt comfortable having babies with the men who were home with them. The men were home with them. They were pair bonding with a man who they wanted to have children with. And guess what? They had children with that man. This is the answer. If women pair bond with men that they want to have children with, they will have children with them. Now, sadly, sometimes there are bad boys out there who are super hot and sexy. And sometimes women think, this is the guy I want to have children with. And they're often wrong on that one. But that also happens. And then you wind up being single mom. Yes. John says, 49, thank you so much. Oh, that's just, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Peace is in the house, $5. I'm not pair bonded, but I have friends. Another 5 years before AI can be my boyfriend, assuming it's conscious by then. Okay, it will be conscious by then, Peace. I think we know that. The question is, will you want to pair bond with an AI boyfriend? That's the issue. Will you want to or not? And there are a lot of people. You can't be sure on how many current men in America have somehow engaged with an AI or robotic girlfriend. But you can look at numbers in general and make an assumption based upon the numbers that we know and the assumptions that we make. It's about 1 million or more. That's a lot. That's a lot. 1 million men who've experienced an AI girlfriend? That's a big deal. That's just starting. So, Peace, I don't know. Maybe they're going to have the cool AI boyfriend that you want. It's possible. But again, I go back to the first piece. So they have this awesome AI boyfriend. Are you interested in pair bonding? That's the issue. Do you want to pair bond with an AI? There are a lot of men who are totally open to it. Clearly, there's a lot of men who are fine with it. Are you one of those? If you are, you can pair bond with your AI boyfriend. If not, doesn't matter, right? I am personally interested in AI girlfriend. Not me. Not interested. Now, maybe my mind will change. Maybe 2 years from now, I'll have 3. Never know. I'll be the cool guy with 3 AI female robots. Tell me how handsome I am everywhere I go. So I'll be some kind of cool stuff like 3 AI robots, girlfriends. Maybe. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. That's what I'll say. We'll see. So yes. All righty. Valerie says, hey, Larry, I thought journalists were supposed to be neutral. Me too. I also thought that. I did think that. Yes, clearly we were wrong. Michael says, Monday night cringe with Larry Sharpe. I appreciate that. All right. I do want to keep going though if I could. And this part is what it should have been. This is a guy who I have watched multiple times. I brought him on here before. Patrick Boyle, very savvy guy. He did a video very recently about birth rates and they're plummeting and why. Now, this is the kind of thing CNN should have done. Boyle doesn't say Elon bad. He just walks through data, talks about a person who has an idea, right? Because he says it is an issue that we should be talking about, which is true. We should do it. And Mike says it exactly right. If the global population crashes, modern life will be impossible to maintain. He is correct. So that means we either have to stop the population crash, option 1, or 2, prepare for this crash so that modern life can become maintainable, right? One of those 2 things we should be doing. What we should be doing is going, it's bad because spaceman. That's the wrong answer. That's the wrong answer. The right answer is either stop it or have an answer for it happening. Either one is fine. The one we're doing is wrong.
Are falling around the world. And while this might seem like nothing new, as it's been the case in developed countries for quite some time, the number of newborns in Japan fell 5% last year, and 5%. Birth rates hit record lows in England and the United States too.
Look at that.
The thing that's interesting is that we're seeing declining birth rates everywhere, and the standard explanations that you've heard in the past don't really hold up.
See, he gets it. I knew he would. That's why I went to him. When I saw people talking about it's because it's not enough money, like that's not true. Who's gonna? And I thought, who could I go to figure this out? Most people won't, because most people go, yeah, it's money or it's gays. It's the right says it's the gays, the left says it's the money. It's neither. It's not LGBTQ. It's not cash. It's we're not pair bonding. That's what it is. That's the actual answer. Yes. Peace goes on. Thank you for the $5 again, brother. Consciousness is not really understood yet. I wouldn't assume AI consciousness in 5 years. Appearing conscious is different than actual consciousness. I just saw, I forgot which scientist was talking about this piece. He said, if there was such a thing And at the moment that we know of publicly, there is not. I mean, it may be, but that we know of publicly, this does not exist. But if there was a thing that could replace a neuron, one neuron in your brain, and if they could pull that neuron out and put that they could pull your current neuron out and put this artificial neuron in, would you be any more or less conscious? I think the answer most people say is no, you're still conscious. Doesn't change anything. I put a real one or a fake one. It's still there, right? Doesn't matter if I had that thing. Okay, at what point am I not conscious? What if I just replaced one at a time until I replaced all of them? And I had an artificial brain. Would I still be conscious? Would it still be me? Would it not be me anymore? At one point, is it not me, right? When the last human neuron goes away, am I at that point not human or not conscious? Or if I just keep one? And it's a tough one. I think you're right. It is difficult, but I think it's going to happen very soon. Because to your point, who defines what consciousness is? And we haven't done that yet. At one point, we're going to have to. I was talking yesterday about that with the positronic brain, the positronic man. So yes, it's a valid point. So, alrighty.
The first contraceptive pill was approved by the FDA in the United States in 1960. And over the next 20 years, the average number of children born to American women halved from almost 4 to 2. The pill had a major impact on society and culture.
That's not money. That's not money. Right? That has nothing to do with cash. That has to do with women having more control of their body and making a decision yet again. If women decide to not have children, we're not having children. If women decide to have children, we're having children. That's how that works.
It contributed to a sharp increase in female college attendance and graduation rates.
Yep.
Over that 20-year period, the number of marriages only fell slightly. The fertility rate, which is the expected number of children born per woman in her childbearing years, sits at 1.44 children per woman today in the UK.
Terrible.
And 1.64 children per woman today in the United States.
Terrible.
The replacement fertility rate, which would keep the population steady, is 2.1 births per woman in the developed world.
In case you hadn't noticed that, that's lower.
But it can be as high as 3.5 in undeveloped countries because of higher mortality rates.
Shelley's point.
There are a lot of reasons given for the falling birth rates in wealthy countries. Most obviously, increased access to contraception, but also improved education and career opportunities for women, the rising cost of living and raising children, and changing societal values and family structures.
So here's my point. He actually said it could be this, or this. Where was the point where he said these crazy pronatalist people? He didn't mention that at all. Where did he said it's white men? He didn't say it at all, did he? He didn't say any of that. When did he say Elon Musk is evil and spaceman bad? He didn't say that. He didn't. Why couldn't CNN have done this? Why are more people watching guys like him? There are others who do this too, obviously, but this guy I know. Versus CNN. Why is CNN dying? Because CNN put out garbage. This guy's just giving you can listen and go, I believe that. I don't believe that. Where are your sources? What sources? Sources. I'm hungry, obviously. Where are your sources? Yes, right? You could just do that. Now with CNN, it's just, woman went out there and looked at men and told them they were stupid. Oh, I guess that's funny. Ha ha, dumb spaceman. This guy's giving you actual data. You can go back and forth and agree or not. You could look it up. You could challenge him on it or not. Or believe him, whatever.
The interesting thing, though, is that birth rates are collapsing everywhere, not just in the developed world.
Yes, everywhere, people. It isn't just one.
World. Tunisia, Turkey, Tamil Nadu, Guatemala, and Mexico are all experiencing similar declines.
Every single one.
According to research from my colleague Alice Evans at King's College London, Turkey has a lower birth rate than the UK does,
Imagine
and
that.
Mexico has a lower birth rate than the United States.
And they're
when
Catholic.
you look at the factors that can
The
be
Mexicans are
blamed,
Catholic.
for example, the high cost of raising and educating children or working women marrying later, they don't apply in every country where.
And that is why I'm telling you this is not the answer. It isn't the answer. Just because someone has, you know, whatever, less money, more money, whatever, that is not a reason. If a woman pair bonds with a man that she wants to have children with, she will have children with him. It doesn't matter if she's poor, if she's rich, if she's tall, if she's short. It doesn't matter. If she's educated, if she's not, it does not matter. If she finds a man that she wants to have children with, she pair bonds with him, she will have children with him. That's just human nature. Now, the question is, why aren't women finding those men? That might have something to do with education or making money or something like that. And that's why it's multifaceted. So, but the key isn't it's too expensive. That's a story the left will tell you. It's not true. It's not true. Or Mike says, feminists don't want women having babies, so they're against it that will promote that. They never consider consequences. Also not true. It isn't feminists that don't want women to have babies. No, that's not true. Feminists have babies too. If, and I go back to it, they pair bond with a man they want to have babies with. Sadly, most feminists either get tricked by some slick talking bad boy, which happens so often, or they don't find a guy who they find valuable, because you got to be a male feminist. And you can see in America, there's less and less of those, which goes to politics, we talked about before. When you have women and men who are so different politically, and again, women decide to have babies or not, right? So if women are saying, I don't want to have babies with a guy who's not my politics, she's not going to find that man. So the feminist piece you're talking about, Mike, is accurate, but not for that reason. It's not because women don't want women to have babies. That's not true. Feminists have babies. It's true. I know you and I both know feminists who have babies, right? They have babies. The question is, are they finding the male feminists or being fooled by the liars who are savvy and smart, quick talkers, right? That they want to have children with. That's the key. This is not this. It's you're right, but for a different reason.
Fertility rates are declining. According to Alice, the initial drop in US fertility can be attributed to couples having fewer children. But in recent years, the major contributing factor is the decline of coupling. People are either pairing up later in life and thus having fewer children, or staying single and having no children.
Yes, more and more common. You're seeing both of those, right? And the poster child for this is Korea. Right, the average. I'm going to get the number wrong, but it's something like this. The average Korean woman who has a baby in her 30s now. The average in her 30s. That's not good for having big families. If you're starting to have children in your 30s, how many can you have? Right? Maybe 2, pushing 3. If you're doing like back to back, maybe pushing 3. Really, you're probably going to have 1 or 2. That's real, right? But women used to start having kids at 22. You start having kids at 22, you can easily have 4 kids. You can have 6 or 8. Who cares, right? You start having kids in your 30s, I mean, unless you're really hardcore back-to-backing, right? And then that's punishment on yourself. Some women do it. And you know what? If you're a woman who wants that, good on you. No judgment. Just saying most women are not going to punish themselves at 35 and have 4 kids. Most women aren't going to do that. But some will. But again, that's the important piece. Why? Because the woman isn't finding a man that she is partnering with, a man that she's prepared to have children with until she's in her 30s now.
Explanations that you'll likely have heard are that fertility rates are dropping because women are spending more time in education, or that fertility rates fall when women focus more on their careers than they did in the past.
That's, again, yes and no. Yes and no. Education itself isn't the reason for a woman to not have children. That isn't necessarily that. But again, as a woman gets more educated, she becomes pickier for the men she's going to pair bond with. That's true. So the education itself is irrelevant. A woman will want to have a baby or not, whether she's educated or not. Doesn't change. She doesn't say, I don't want kids because I have a PhD. That's not her reason. She either wants them or she doesn't. Her education doesn't stop her from wanting to have kids, but her education does make her judge men differently. So there are less men that she's prepared to pair bond with. That's true. And that goes back to that piece.
It's often reported that people just decide to have fewer children when countries become more prosperous. But according to Alice, the decline is most pronounced among societal groups with less education rather than more. Her data shows that coupling is not only declining in wealthy Western countries, but also in East Asia, Latin America, and most severely in the Middle East and North Africa. In Turkey and Tunisia, the fertility rate has fallen to 1.5 children per woman, which is a bigger problem than the 1.44 in the UK, as the replacement rate in the developing world is much higher than in the developed world.
To Shelley's point.
Because of higher mortality rates. In countries with different wealth, different cultures, different religiosity, and where people face very different problems, fertility has gotten very low and is continuing to fall.
So wait a minute now. This guy's saying all the stuff you're saying is different everywhere. So how can it be money where in certain areas there's more money, certain areas there's less? How can it be, education? Certain areas there's more education, certain areas there's not. How can that be? What could it be? He's going to tell you.
So why should we be concerned about this? For decades, people were worrying about overpopulation. Well, from a financial perspective, as countries face both aging and declining populations and a smaller workforce in relation to the number of retirees, it could cause all sorts of economic problems.
And that's the issue, right? Mike is correct. Our current lifestyle, we cannot maintain the way we are now. Now, am I saying that we have to have more kids for that? No, I'm not saying that. There are other ways you can fix it. Of course you could. But the problem is we're doing nothing. We're just complaining. That's the problem. We have to either say, we're going to have more kids. Okay, let's find an answer. Or two, you know what? We're not going to have more kids, but here is the way we're going to solve our financial problems because at one point, this is going to collapse.
Charles Goodhart and Manoj Pradhan wrote a book, The Great Demographic Reversal, on the economic...
Wait a minute. He's actually showing you like books and studies and stuff? Huh. It's almost like he's a journalist. Weird, isn't it?
Effects of these demographic changes and how governments and policymakers have not prepared for this issue. Longtime viewers know that I often rely on my sponsor, Ground News.
All right, I'm going to pass the ground news piece. I appreciate that, but we're not going to ground news it. So, yes.
Since then, the low birth rates combined with the extension in lifespans that we've seen in developed countries
That's a problem.
Have meant a rapid decrease in the ratio of people in the labor force
Bingo.
to people over the age of 65. This ratio has already reached levels where the fiscal sustainability of the social contract of financing healthcare and pensions has come under threat.
And in Korea, they think it's over. Like there are people who are saying there is no way to recover. That in Korea, it is so low that even if they were to turn it around and begin to turn around right now, the damage is so deep that they will only have two options. Three. One is just horrible. One of them is literally the country will just begin to collapse. People will just leave because there's no way they can survive. People will have to leave, right? They just pack up and go. And the country will begin to just decay. That's option one. Option two, they will have to somehow deal with, get rid of, or put back to work their elderly. Oh my God, is that horrible? So you got to say, well, you were retired, not anymore, back to work. Or we're not giving you any money. Good luck. Do something, right? Because there's not going to be any money. So either put them back to work, get them out of retirement, don't give any money, put them all in homes like that. And that's a serious thing. Or the last one, massive immigration. Now here's the problem. South Korea is literally the most conservative culture on the planet. I'm not making that up. Do your homework. It's true. Most conservative on the planet. So you're going to take that conservative culture and say, here's a bunch of immigrants. Good luck with that. Now, you could do it, and those are your three choices. You literally abandon the cities, and they begin to crumble. And the worst part is Seoul. Korea is even worse spot because Seoul, one city, has more than half the population. Could you imagine if we had that? That would mean, like New York City being a larger city, that means New York City would have to have 165 million people. It has 8 million. It is 8 million. But it would have to have 165 million people in one city. That's the massive area Seoul is. So they're worse off. It's an issue that we have to deal with in some way, shape, or form. It's a problem, and we're not dealing with it. America will be there at one point.
But this ratio will continue to decline in the future. According to Land Pritchett at the London School of Economics.
What more actual data you could look at if you wanted to? Wait a minute. It's almost like he's teaching you something. It's almost like he did some homework and he just sends somebody there to do a hit piece on Elon Musk. Wow, that's weird.
If no migration occurs by 2050, Italy will have 0.88 people in the labor force for everyone over the age of 65.
So that means Italy won't even have one person working for every person who's retired. So one person is paying for themselves, their family, if they have a family, and the elderly. How? There will be no money. That's my point. Michael is correct. Mr. Voss is correct. We have to do something. This is not sustainable. So either you follow the Elon Musk method, which is just everyone have 10 kids. That's option one. Option two, change how our economics work because this is unsustainable. The Ponzi scheme is now becoming clear. Mike has bad news. Thank you for the $5. When liberals hear we need more children, they automatically think Handmaid's Tale. Correct. And that's a problem. They go right to politics. Right to politics. Immediately. Oh my God, terrible. When I was first dating my wife, I told her that I wanted to have kids. And for me, I didn't have many deal breakers for getting married. I didn't have many deal breakers, but I had one deal breaker. Got to have kids. If you don't want kids, you can't be married. Can't do it. I'm not for you. You're not for me. Got to be part of it. You're right. She immediately got angry at me. She did. And she didn't tell me why. And we talked later about it. And she's upset. She's like, you think that all I'm good for is, what if I can't have kids? I said, I didn't say you had to have kids. She goes, what do you mean? For those who don't know, I'm adopted. I don't care if the kids were natural or not. Then we'll do IVF or we'll adopt kids. I don't care. I just wanted kids in my life. That's what I wanted. And I have two, and I'm very happy about that. I would like to have more, but two's good. So that's what I wanted. That was, for me, that was a deal breaker. Again, no judgment on you if you don't want to have kids. You do you. But for me, that was a deal breaker, right? If she'd have been like, we get married, we're not having kids. We're not getting married then. That would have been a deal breaker. I'd have ended it. But so she immediately went to an attack on her. You're right. She immediately went to attack on her. You want to see liberal? Yeah. She voted for Hillary Clinton. Yes. So yes, immediately an attack. She took it as if I was attacking her, and I was not. And it should have been obvious because she also knew that I was adopted. So I'm going to have some self-righteous thing of you have to have natural kids. I didn't care about that. I just wanted kids in my life. I didn't care if we had them naturally, if we used IVF, if we adopted. What did I care? Just wanted kids in my life. I didn't care how we got it. But you're right. She took it personally and was angry at me. We had to have a conversation about it. And I never said that. And look at my own background. But it's true. It is true. So.
No economy in history has ever had dependency ratios that high.
Yes.
In the post-war period, when European social programs were introduced, there were 8 workers for every retiree.
8 to 1.
Pritchett points out that because the elderly require a lot of care, there simply won't be enough workers to do that work in the near future.
That's the
issue. He says that if you want to maintain the support ratio of workers to those over the age of 65 at its current level, the rich world would need to import 450 million workers in the next 25 years.
Think about that. We'd have to import 450 million workers in the next 20 years, 25 years. And you think last 2 years, all those migrants that came in, that was a mistake? That was an error by the Biden administration? That's what that was? You can think that if you want to. I don't think that's what's happening. Yes. Michael says, Japan has very limited immigration and the population is declining. Correct. The Japanese are in trouble. For those who don't know, the Japanese have been in trouble for years. Michael's correct. I used to live in Japan. I lived in Japan in the 90s. They were in trouble back then. And back then, 90s and 2000s, they were actually starting to import Chinese wives because the Japanese women didn't want to marry Japanese men. Japanese men didn't want to marry Japanese women. Back then, back in the 90s, it was already happening. Then they started importing wives from Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Philippines, importing wives into Japan because the immigration is very limited. So the only way you could get there is you got to marry a Japanese dude, right? So they would be bringing the Japanese dudes in. And what I found was as Japanese men were trying hard to bring non-Japanese women into America, Japanese women were starving to find non-Japanese men so they could leave the country. Now, that helped America out tremendously. Look, I'm American. I'm happy it happened. The brain drain that America got in savvy, talented, educated Japanese women, insane. Australia got a lot too. Australia got a ton, and so did America. We got a ton. There's so many smart, talented, educated Japanese women came to America and Australia because there was a brain drain because the Japanese men didn't want them. America was like, we'll take them. Come on down. We'll take them. And Australia and America got tons of them. And good for us, bad for Japan, I think. But, whatever. I'm not Japanese. Good luck, Japan. You do you. But so now, by the way, the new trend in Japan is East European women they're importing. They get the Chinese women, they got tired of them, they got tired of the Vietnamese, Filipinos. Now they're bringing in Ukrainians and Russians. One of the reasons why is, of course, there's a war in Ukraine, obviously, and Ukrainian women are trying to escape Ukraine. I get it. You're escaping a war zone. But not just that. All those men who are dying are creating a surplus of women. So they're like, well, literally, these men are being killed and being sucked up in a war. I still want to have a family, whatever. Oh, these Japanese guys will pick me up. All right. So that's actually happening too. So yes, that's the current thing that's happening. It keeps moving back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So yes. IC says, I'm from a family of 15 children. My parents did their part. Yes, they did. Your parents absolutely did their part. Absolutely. 100%. And good for you. That's what I'll say. Good for you. So, all righty. Let me grab some more of these comments. You have so many of these. I do appreciate these. So, oh, wow. Joel says there were 7 kids. Yeah, it's a lot. Totally true. Yes. Yes. Sarah says, would be interesting to see the numbers on Korean and Japanese American families. What rate are they having kids? They're having kids the same as us. Right? Same average. More than there, but same as us. When you go to an area, you tend to copy. So yeah, you tend to copy, and that's normal here. Yep, absolutely. Stelline says, I'm the baby of 6. Probably also why I only had 1. It's funny, I'm an only child, Stelline, and I wanted to have a lot. So maybe, yeah, I could see it. Yeah, absolutely. I think it might be. Yeah, it definitely could be that. So yeah, so I'm glad you guys are having this kind of back and forth. Let me keep going. I'm gonna grab a little bit more of this if I could.
Japan currently has the lowest ratio of workers to retirees, with 1.83 workers per person over the age of 65. Jesus Fernandez Villaverde from the University of Pennsylvania.
I actually met this guy a while ago. He's brilliant, actually.
Analyzed the GDP of advanced economies per working age adult instead of growth per capita, and found that Japan is a surprisingly productive economy once demographics are taken into account. Yep. Since the global financial crisis, he found that Japan has the highest growth rate in output per working age adult.
Now think about that. Japan has the highest growth rate in output per working age adult, right? Of all the countries he studied, advanced countries. Yet they're in permanent stagflation. Permanent stagnation. They're growing as though tomorrow. Imagine if they didn't have this demographic problem. They'd probably be one of the fastest growing economies on the planet. They probably would be. They're pedaling faster and faster to just stay above water. They're in trouble. I don't want us to be there. I don't want us to be there. Pete coming in, as always. But Larry, we need another big generation of taxpayers. True. You're not wrong. 36 trillion, 215 billion, 973 million, 825,751.09. We need those 450 million people to come and start paying that down. You're not wrong, brother. You're not wrong. Yes, you are not wrong. Shelly says, my sister has 12 children and 40-something grandkids. Man, that's a lot of kids. That is a lot of kids. Absolutely. But you know what? We're all rocking it. So I'm looking over at Instagram, and the Arcane Anthony says the world society is on decline because people aren't smart enough to not bring children to this world. AI and robotics, there will not be labor shortages. There will be a concern as there is now for skill. The question becomes, Arcane Anthony, is what do you do with the elderly? Let's say you're right, and AI fills the labor gap, and we don't care about labor anymore. That's amazing. But then does AI also take care of the elderly? Is that our answer? And maybe that is a good answer. I'm not saying you're wrong, maybe, but who's talking about this then? If that's true, and AI is going to take over the world or whatever, and take all the labor, okay, I'll buy it. Could happen. So then does that mean AI robots take care of the elderly, so we don't have to pay for them anymore? At the cost of the elderly will become so minor that all robots take care of them? Now, in theory, that sounds fine, in theory, but what about in practice? Will the elderly in America want to accept it? Number one, will they be like, okay, fine, I'll take an AI person. Do they care? I don't know. Will they accept it? Even, and whether they accept it or not, will it be good for them? Right? To Peace Logic's point, would the AI robots who take care of the elderly, would it be the same as them having a connection with somebody else? Or not? Would it be a cold connection that wouldn't be work? There was I forgot the name of the episode now, but there was a Doctor Who episode. Yes, I'm going back to sci-fi. The Doctor Who episode with, of course, Tom Baker, the best doctor, where the doctor and Leela somehow get trapped on a mining vessel on the planet, and they're mining. And all the miners are robots. And they're walking robots. They walk around, basically androids, right? They walk around and they do most of the mining, most of the work. There's a small skeleton crew of people who control the robots, but they're all just robots. I don't remember the name of that episode. But that episode, people could go crazy. And there's a thing they called it, the disease, was called robophobia. Yes, that was the name of the disease. They called it. I don't know if it's real. But it was that people would get robophobia. They would kind of go crazy. It wasn't a disease. It was a mental condition called robophobia, which he called it a disease, but it's a mental condition where people would be watching these robots walking around, but they would know that it's not really a human. And it would drive some people crazy, right? Okay, well, let's assume that Doctor Who was real science fiction. There's something real to that. Would that happen to our elderly? Would the AI robots just not be real, but be real? And then they go nuts because they can't tell what's real and what's not? I have no idea. But my point, as always, is we can't ignore this. There needs to be an answer. That's the problem, right? There needs to be one of those. So, yes. All righty. Let's see. John says, have me considering joining Rumble and or X or Twitter. Have you on Facebook and YouTube already. I appreciate every one of them. I'm glad I have you on too. I'll take what I can get. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. Phil says, economies of scale. Once you get past a third, the cost per kid goes down. True. That's accurate. And people may not realize that, but it is. It's just like having pets. It's true. People say, how can you have 2 or 3 dogs? Having the first dog's the problem. The second dog is actually easier because they take care of each other better. Third dog is actually even easier. You spend more on food and stuff, but I mean, just actual time is not as bad. I've had multiple dogs. It's actually not as bad. So yeah, you're right. Kids, same thing. I know I have 2 kids, 6 years apart. If you have a couple of kids, 2, 3, 4, 5 years apart each, they take care of each other. You don't have a choice. Do as I say. I'm your dad. Done. So yes, you're right. And hand-me-downs and some of the same stuff you use again. It's true. It does go down. Doesn't mean it's cheap, but yes, absolutely. So Joe says, props to Larry for scanning through our chat and not shaking his head to content. I love you guys and your content, and I'm so happy that we've made this kind of community. I often have chats with my team, other people who do this type of work, and they all tell me I'm wrong. They say you shouldn't do it live. You should be setting up videos and doing videos and producing the here and there and doing that. And I see it. The guys who don't do this live, the guys who put together a video and edit it nice and put it up, they literally get just 10 to 100,000 times more views than I get. It's true. They do. And I've considered it multiple times. But I like this part. If I just had to make videos, I wouldn't make any videos. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I'd do the stuff. I would go back to work, do the stuff. I wouldn't do it. And my team's always saying, Larry, you need to do more videos. I don't want to. I don't want to do videos. I want to do this. I want to communicate with you guys. I want to talk back and forth. I don't want to do videos. So that's why I don't do them. Even though it's clearly YouTube is telling me, stop doing this. Do the dumb videos. Like this guy does videos. He does nothing live. He does a video, puts it up. Boom. Because bazillion freaking everything. Yeah. What are you going to do? It is what it is. There we go. Felicia says, I easily got pregnant with my second child 6 months after my first. Wow. With no new stretch marks and easy labor and delivery. Some people got it. Good for you. Nicely done. Nicely done. That's awesome. I love that.
In the countries he studied at 1.49%, surpassing the US growth rate of 1.34%. But the problem is the country's terrible demographics.
Yep.
Based on his research, this is the cause of Japan's malaise. Unfortunately, without migration, every rich country in the world will have a lower ratio of workers to retirees by 2050 than Japan has today.
Yep.
This isn't really based on projections either. 2050 is just around the corner, and most of the people who will be of working age by 2050 have already been born today.
Yep.
You might think that the solution is just for people to extend their working lives. After all, if we're living longer and we're healthier,
that will be one option they'll have to take, right? They will have to say, sorry, you don't get to retire until you're 75 or 80. And that's not going to go over well. He's talking about it right now, but it's not going to go over well.
Before, maybe we can work into our 70s.
Yep.
While this might be necessary, it would be very difficult from a political perspective. In 2022, the French president announced that he would gradually raise the retirement age from 62 to 65.
Yep.
Retirement age would be extended by 3 months per year from September 2023 to September 2030. This led to massive demonstrations and strikes. Raising the retirement age in the developed...
Think about that. From 62 to 65. If we want to go down that road, we're talking you're going down to like 75, right? 75, 77 for us to be viable. Are we going to put up with that? I mean, maybe, but if we don't, there's no money. So I guess you get nothing then.
Developed world wouldn't help very much anyway, as according to Pritchett's analysis, there's aging amongst the aged. Most of the people over 65 are well over 65.
That's the problem.
A lot of the growth in the population is people in their 80s and 90s.
People aren't dying.
Pradhan and Goodhart argue in their book that the demographic changes that are occurring will have massive economic effects.
That's the
They
problem.
point out that while global inequality has declined over the last 30 or so years, within country inequality has increased. This increase in inequality in the developed world has led to the rise of populist leaders who promise to fix it. Pradhan and Goodhart say that this inequality dynamic is mostly explained by a shock in the supply of labor.
Look at that. I thought it's evil rich people. That can't be true. Robert says, I couldn't care less about the individuals that describe themselves as pronatalist. I'm just here to point out how the narrative for Black people having many children, they were scored. True. You're not wrong, right? You're not wrong. The idea of large Black families was like, you're bad, you're welfare queen. I completely agree. Yes, completely agree. Yep. John says, Larry, does that mean that there will be men out there pimping out robots? 100% yes. But it'll be legal. They'll sell them online. So they'll be pimping them, but it'll just be sell them online. Buy my robot. She's the hottest. She's the coolest. She's the best. Whatever is the thing you care about, John. She got the biggest this or the biggest that, or the smallest this or the smallest that, whatever is your thing. And I'm sure they'll have for every thing you like, there'll be a robot for it. Whatever is your kink of the day, my friend, whatever you like. There's going to be one. You might have a whole closet full of them. Oh, it's Tuesday. I'm in the mood for this. Whoop. In comes this one. So yeah, I could see that completely. Yes. Gene says, AI boyfriend, even if they are fully functional, like Data, can they father children? You would think that they would not be able to. However, I'm sure you could find a way could you probably save? You could probably, someone would assume that you could find a way. I mean, the only issue is there'd be a legal issue, Gene. That would be the issue. There'd be a legal issue. Now, sadly, there are insanely stupid judges out there who will wreck everything, which they're already in process of. Judges are now saying that if someone agrees to be a sperm donor and you sign a legal agreement, it doesn't matter. They can still sue you for child support. That's how stupid our judges are. That's how embarrassingly dumb and ideologically broken our judges are. So if you donate to a sperm bank, there is now a precedent for someone to come chasing you down for child support. Yes, I'm not joking. So here's the issue. Could you, in theory, have your robot that's fully functional in every way have sperm frozen in a thing until he needs to release that? I guess you warm it up. I don't know, whatever. You warm it up, I guess, a natural way, whatever you do, and then release it to the woman so she can get pregnant. In theory, that could be done. Of course, that could be done. There's technology for that. But the problem is then, who's the father? Who's the father? And then who's responsible for that, right? That's the issue. Who's responsible for that? You'd have to have a whole bunch of legal issues around that before that would actually work on a grand scale. But could it in theory? Sure. But are you then saying it doesn't have a father? Or I'll go back to Peace's point. Is this now sentient? Does it now become a father? Yeah, we're in trouble. Robert says the whole welfare queen stereotype was built around it. You're not wrong. It's absolutely true. Yes, that's what it was. I agree. Yes. Let me grab down here if I can. Okay. Celine says, could we just scale back and sell everything we need? Probably not. Because here's the issue where he's going to cover in a second.
Brought about by globalization. They say that we've already reached peak globalization a few years ago, as there was nowhere else to go to build factories staffed by cheaper labor. They argue that globalization over the last 30 years or so was deflationary, as while working wages didn't rise in the developed world, the cost of goods that we consume fell in price and increased in quality for the price we pay. They point out, much like Lamp Pritchett does, that the services required by the elderly can't be shipped in from abroad the way clothing and electronics can.
Yes, however, AI can fix this.
As the consumption of Western consumers switches from physical goods towards healthcare and personal services, they argue that the deflationary effects of globalization will reverse. On top of this, as the supply of workers falls, their bargaining power in wage negotiations will grow. We're already seeing shortages of labor in the developed world, and as the working age population declines and the consumption basket changes, this can be expected to become more of a problem.
Unless, and this is the part he's not talking about, in theory, that's correct. Theoretically, right? If you just go through the theory, it's true. The problem is everything's being automated. So while there is a labor shortage, they're not looking for more bodies, looking for more machines. So that's the problem there, right? That is the problem. Rysticker says it's not pair bonding. It's people realizing they don't have to have kids and can do what they want with their time instead of taking care of kids, adult freedom. I would call that as a level of self-centeredness that is there. But even people who are self-centered, many of them still, in theory, could want children, right? But here's the issue. The last time I checked, most women, I think it was like 80%, something that's like 80% of women or 90% of women want children. So most women, massive amount of women, do want children. That's true. Most do. There's about 10%, if I remember right, who don't want to because they're either lesbian or they have some sexual or gender issue that they're like, don't want to do it, not worth it, don't want to. So it's a choice they're kind of making. If they might, but there's a percent of at least 10%, whatever that point is. There's another 10% that don't want children and don't even want a relationship. So they're like, and that can be their own personality, or it could even be from like trauma they've had, whatever the case may be. So you've got about somewhere between 10 and 20% of people who are like women who's like, I don't want it, not my thing, don't want it, not going to have it. But about 80% of women, give or take, again, it's the last time I checked, I'm sure there's going to be some amount of difference in polling, want to have children. But only about 50% will now. So it's pair bonding, man. They're not doing it. They want children. Most do, but they're not having them. It is pair bonding. Now, I'll add your point. Similar to what Mike was saying. Yes, that freedom thing doing at the time is one of the big reasons why women are pair bonding later in life. If you go back 30, 40 years, there was a movie called Mona Lisa Smiling. This is probably about 20, 30 years old. And it was a movie about women in the 60s who would go to college, not to get education. They would go to college to find a college husband. That was the goal of these women going to college. It's a movie set in the 60s, and this group of women who are like, we don't care about education. We just want to go there. And they wanted to get the MRS degree. That's what it was called, the MRS degree. That's what they wanted to get. They didn't care. That was a thing. When my mom was going to school, that's what she thought. You didn't go to college to learn. You went to college so you could find a college husband. That's why you did it. That was a thought process. So I think what's happening now is women are saying, I don't need to find a man in college, to your point. But that's not the reason but that's the reason why they're not pair bonding, if that makes any sense. They don't need to. They don't want to. Why should I bother? I can have a good time. I got my own money. I got my own everything. I don't need that. And then when they get into their 30s, they go, you know what? Maybe it's time to settle down and have children. Well, great. You have children. But if you start having children at 35 versus 25, you're literally limited to the amount of kids you can have. Right. So I think that's the issue. So it's kind of what I'm saying with Mike. You're right, but different reason. It's still at the end comes down to pair bonding. That's what it comes down to. Everything else is secondary that moves that piece.
Especially if immigration restrictions stay in place or grow. Goodhart and Pradhan expect to see a decline in inequality in the developed world, but unless there's a major productivity boost, they say that we can expect to see reduced output and suffer many of the problems seen in Japan today.
And that's a problem. Sarah says, is it me or does pair bond sound alien? Yes, but I want to make a difference between pair bond and hookup. A lot of people like seeing attractive people, or they feel like they want to just feel loved, whatever the case may be, and they hook up and have sex. That's fine. Again, no judgment on that. You do you. But most women don't want to have children from a hookup. Some do, and they do. It does happen. But most women would rather have a child with someone who they think they can pair bond with, who will be there in the child's life, who can be there for them. Most women prefer that. Again, not all, but most do. So that's why I'm using the phrase pair bond. Women can hook up if they want to all day long. Doesn't mean that they need to have children or will have children. Most of the time, women who are choosing to do hookups tend to not want to have children. At least at that time. At that time, they don't want to because they're hooking up. So that's why I use the phrase pair bond. That means the woman says, this is a guy who I want to be with, not who I want to sleep with. That difference. So, well, not really sleeping, but you know what I'm saying. Yes. Phil says, a pregnancy after 35 is called a geriatric pregnancy. Not impossible, but harder. Correct. Yeah. It doesn't mean you can't. I mean, of course you can. Women have children in their 40s. Of course you can. But it's harder, right? And often takes more time. Usually. Again, not always, but usually takes more time. So by statistics, you're going to have less children if you started when you were 25. So yeah, that's it. Shelly says, this is the best chat group I've been in, and I've been a lot. Aw, thank you. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. That's amazing.
These economists have a very different worldview to the Silicon Valley visionaries who are telling us that AI breakthroughs will cause mass unemployment in the near future.
Yes, the other issue.
Alice Evans points out that
look at how he keeps giving you things to look at and read. It's weird. He's almost like a journalist. Like he's done homework and then made an actual story. He didn't just go, I'm going to go to some place and say the spaceman's bad. He didn't do that. Why are people listening to him and watching him and people like him and not CNN? I think it's obvious.
South Indian states have seen a collapse in fertility equivalent to in Western countries. Tamil Nadu has the lowest fertility rate at 1.4, but in Tamil Nadu, only 29% of women work outside the home. This means that the average man will be supporting himself, his wife and kids, along with 2 sets of elderly parents. This is quite a burden for one wage earner who also has to presumably prepare for his own retirement.
Well, here, Mike Has Bad Knees says, I'm surprised to hear that about the Middle East. Yes, absolutely. M.W. Knox says, toxic work culture has been a huge part of the problem in Korea and Japan. True. And again, this is another piece that goes back to pair bonding. If you're a woman working your 40, 50, 60, 70 hours in Japan or Korea, being harassed by your bosses, when you come home, the last thing you do is talk to the man, right? You've been harassed all day. So you're in a bad mood. You're not feeling good. And the men you meet, you're judgmental. You don't like them. You're in a crappy mood. The men now don't like you because you're in a crappy mood. So no one starts pair bonding. Yes. So, of course, again, it's another reason why we're not pair bonding, right? Because we don't want to talk to each other. And Korea and Japan are the perfect example. They're post child for that. Men don't want to talk to women. Women don't want to talk to men. The 4B movement started in Korea, which is no babies, no boyfriends, no children. I'm sorry, no dating, no kissing, no sex, nothing. Leave men alone. And that's equivalent to the MGTOW movement here in America. Opposite. Men going their own way. Men who have checked out, don't want to deal with women. I see it in New York City. And I think it's weird. Because I've been here for many years. I remember when it was not uncommon for men and women to literally pick each other up on the street. Now, that is like almost never. Most of the women and men that I see don't even want to talk. They're not even open to talking to each other. They're not open even talking to each other outside in the street. They'd like walk away, looking away on their phone. How do you meet people? Jesus. So yeah, absolutely. Sarah, thank you for the 49, says, there is only one Sharpie's chat. That's true. It's just one. This is the only one. You're not wrong. And I'm very happy that we have it. I am not complaining. I'm very happy that we have it. All right, let me zip through this.
Goodhart and Pradhan point out that as society ages, we can expect to see retirees spend down the savings that they've accumulated during their working lives.
They spend it all away.
They argue that this should push up interest rates in the coming years. They argue that retirement ages will have to increase and tax rates will have to go up to pay for senior benefits.
There we go. Liberty Lady says, I was the opposite. I didn't want kids. So if my husband wanted kids, that would have been a deal breaker. There we go. And again, this is what I often tell people about when they want to get married and such. And I tell them, I ask those questions. Have you had the tough conversations? Right? No, but he's hot, or but she's hot, or I love him, or I love her. Nice. Not mad at that. Great. I hope you think your partner's hot. I hope you love your partner. That's awesome. Please do that. But to your point, Liberty Lady, you got to have a conversation, right? You got to have a conversation. Are you looking at it? Are you not? Do you want that? Do you not? It does matter. And that's preferences that we need to be concerned about. Absolutely. So there we go. Thank you for that.
Say that if tax rates stay the same, the expectation is then that there'll be lower payouts for retirees.
Yep.
They say that lower retiree benefits might incentivize the working age population to save more for retirement as they see the social safety net.
No, it's work harder.
Failing. So what's causing this fertility decline all over the world?
There we
According
go.
to Alice Evans, and I'll put a link to her blog in the description as it's a really fascinating read.
A link to her blog.
It can't be explained by many of the factors that we've heard in the past, as it's happening all over and in parts of the world where those factors don't apply.
Yep.
She argues that the decline in birth rates around...
Before I go there, Roger, he's in a chat. He says, with wages staying stagnant, privatization or corporate government partnerships of publicly owned and ran assets, services, and programs, people stop having babies and marrying because it drives them into poverty. Not true. We have you missed the part of the show. Not true. Everyone says it. Not true. It is all about pair bonding. And he's going to give you the answer right now. That's actually true.
The world is not driven by the decisions made by couples to have fewer children, but from a decline in the number of couples. She says that had US marriage rates and cohabitation rates remained constant over the last decade, America's total fertility rate would actually be higher today than it was in the past. The issue is not declining rates of childbearing, but declining rates of coupling. Some have put forth that this could be driven by women outpacing men in college enrollment and graduation, and that maybe they're refusing to pair up with less successful men.
Now, there's a part of that in certain countries. The issue is depending upon where you are. There is part of that, as I mentioned. So the things a lot of you guys mentioned, that is a part of it, but it all comes down to pair bonding, right? Does a woman decide that she wants to pair bond with this male and have children? Now, again, it could be because she's very educated. She wants an educated male. Well, that lessens your percentage of educated males. Could it be she wants a man of a certain status? Well, if you're going to have high status yourself, it lowers the amount of men who are going to have higher status. True. It could be any of those things. Now, some women don't care about that. Some women are like, I don't care if he's more educated than me. I don't care. Okay, she has more options. The odds of her having children go up. Doesn't mean she will, but the odds of her having children go up because she has more options of men to choose from that she could say, okay, I want to pair bond with this guy, right? So the pickier the woman is, the less chance that she will find a guy who will fit her pickiness, whatever that level is. She'll want to pair bond with him, and that she'll have children with that man. That's the key. That is the key. Looking over at Straight N over on Rumble, and he says, how does the conversation about living wage needed as robots take over the job? Yeah. Yes. What happens then? Everything changes, right? Are we now talking about, well, I don't care about a living wage. I just care, do I have the appropriate services that I want as I get older, right? Is that what it is? Is it there's no wage for the robot at all, so I just pay the company who owns them and I lease them or rent them, or do I buy them, right? Do we have robots that get leased out and you pay the company to come and fix them when they break, like a car? Now, to Peace Logic's point, if we start saying at one point that they are conscious, do they have ownership and property rights? Do they get to vote? Kind of weird. Where do we go with that? I don't think we go that far. So, yeah, that's why Serena asked, how does robotics change the need for more population? A lot, and that is my point. We have to think about this. Mike brought us up early. He set up the bat. Vance set up the bat. He said, this is unsustainable. And he's right. This is unsustainable. We have to either have more children or find an answer. Either one works. The one thing that doesn't work is whatever. That does not work. That does not work. John says AI maybe takes care of the elderly, or at least nursing homes, or maybe in-home care given by a robot. I think that's yes, that will happen. Yes. K. John says Genesis of the Daleks. Nah, that wasn't the one. That was not the one. That was literally the origins that I talked about before. That's the origins of Davros. So no, not that one. Not that one.
The thing is that we see this decline in fertility rates in the Middle East and North Africa, where female educational attainment is lower than male educational
there we go.
attainment.
See?
One of the few places where fertility rates have not declined is in North India. And in North India, the ratio of male to female university enrollment is the same as in the United States, where more women enroll in universities and more women graduate. Well, is it that women have been more economically successful in recent decades and they just don't need a man to support them? That doesn't seem to be the case either. South Korea has the largest gender pay gap in the OECD, but South Korean women are still choosing to go it alone. And
remember, we're talking about Korea and the bad work environment. Just talking about that. Yes, absolutely. That's it. Yes.
Have a fertility rate.
Shelly says, thank you for being a member, Shelly. I had one rule for marriage. Don't get dead. This means no DWI, drugs, sleeping around, etc. He broke the only rule, and I thought it was a bad one. Yeah. Sadly, my father did the same thing. He died too. So, yeah. It sucks. And he also died of cancer. Shelley says, my second husband made up for the first one. Sadly, they both died of cancer, as my father did too. So I get that, Shelley. I do. Not from your point of view, obviously, from my point of view. So
half that of the United States. Is it the cost of living or the cost of educating a young child? After all, I have friends who tell me that they couldn't have another child because of how expensive private schools have become.
Yep.
This might explain lower birth rates in expensive cities, but it doesn't hold in the Middle East and North Africa.
Bingo.
And when we look at a list of the least expensive countries to raise a family, we can see that they all have declining fertility rates too. To be clear, I'm not saying that the cost of living crisis is not a problem.
And I'm going to be clear. I'm glad I said that. I'm not saying it's a problem either. It is a problem. It just isn't the reason, right? It's the same thing when I was talking about the homeless problem. Remember that last week? It's about the homeless problem. And he goes, well, it's because tenant rights. That's not a reason. That doesn't mean tenant rights aren't an issue, but that's not the reason for homelessness. That's a thing they say that seems to sound right. That is not the reason. That it's expensive is not the reason. The reason goes right back down to, are women pair bonding and want to have children with these men at a younger age or not? And the answer is they're not. And each culture has different reasons for that. In the case of Korea, we see what that reason is. America, same thing. But there's something else he's going to bring up here.
Just that it's not the primary cause of declining birth rate.
Correct.
Surveys of parent attitude show that the cost of living is on their list, but it's rarely near the top. And there are large parts of the world where the cost of living has not exploded.
Correct.
And in those places, people are not coupling up and birth rates are in decline.
So no matter what, it isn't just the cash. That's stuff people tell you. Sarah says, I think, remember, Sarah, you're the best at lives, Larry. Thank you. I am trying. It's what I enjoy the most. So, yes. Morgan says, you make clips, shorts based off long form. Keep doing that. I will, but if you notice, those don't do very well. I do it because I think people like it. But yeah, it takes up time and energy, and they don't do very well. I wish they would do better. Maybe they will in the future. Maybe they'll do better in the future. I don't know. So, yeah.
It's often claimed that young, wealthy people are waiting longer to couple up and have children.
Also true.
As they're having fun and spending their income on themselves.
Also
but the
true.
numbers show that the drop in relationship formation is steepest amongst the poorest in society.
Look
so
at
it's
that.
not about wealth.
This is the thing I've noticed. I have noticed younger women, and when I say younger, I say 35, 30 and under, 30, 35 and under in that area and younger. That's how I define younger women, just so we know what I'm talking about. I've seen many of them on either TikTok videos or YouTube videos, whatever, say things like, you know, I'm 29 years old or I'm 28 years old. I've never had a boyfriend. Someone my age, that's like unheard of. How can you, that's impossible, right? Now someone might go, oh, wow, she's a virgin. Oh, she's not a virgin. She is far from that. But she never had a boyfriend. So she grew up in hookup culture. And that's a common thing I'm seeing in youngsters today. Like I have a young daughter who tells me stories, right? So I hear it. There's a lot of people in hookup culture. And I meet a lot of young women who talk to me. I'm 30 years old, 30, a little bit old, a little bit younger. They talk to me. I am a good-looking man. It's true. So they do. And many of them, not all, but many of them are all about hookup culture. And so they wonder, I never had a boyfriend. Well, you don't know how to have one because you didn't have one. You didn't do all the dumb stuff that we all do as teenagers, figuring out how to be a boyfriend or a girlfriend. You didn't do those things. So now you're 27, 28, and all you've done is hookup culture, and now you have a relationship. You don't know how to deal with that. How could you? You've never had one. And then the rise of the situationship. Oh my God. Oh my God. Did women realize what a gift to men that was? I'm sorry. A gift to men who can pull women like that? Those men, not all men, but those men. Oh my God, it's crazy. So yeah, that's the issue in the long run. That really is the issue in the long run. Peace, thank you for the $10. I think we will merge with AI. No more babies. We 3D print a body when a place is needed. A combination of AI and physical body. This might be needed for consciousness, a biological component. I am with you on that. As I said, I think my worry for this piece, as I mentioned yesterday about AI, was it yesterday? No. Saturday, AI. When it's Saturday for AI. My concern about that was you're going to have the wealthy, right, who can afford all that. The oligarchs will do yes, they'll do all of that. Under them will be the straight AI/robot, and then under them will be the regular people. What happens to them? It's a straight answer point. What happens to them? Straight and ask that question, and he's right. Do we need them anymore? Do the oligarchs decide they aren't good enough? And at one point, as I mentioned, at what point am I more cyborg than human? At what point am I no longer a human being? Right? Whenever we make a rule for what is human, and we'll have to make one at one point, we'll decide, is it a percentage? Right? If you're 51% machine, then you're not human. I'm obviously making that up. Is it just your brain that matters? If your brain is human, then you're human. Does it matter how many limbs you have that makes you human? I mean, why would we only have 4 limbs? What stops us from having 6 or 8? I'm not joking. I'm being very serious. If my body is going to be a robotic body, why would I limit myself to 2 or 4 arms or legs? Why wouldn't I have, 4 legs and 6 arms or whatever, right? Why would I limit myself? My brain can handle it if I wanted to. How would I know that? I'll reprogram my brain because I'm half cyborg. So it doesn't really matter. So as we move down that road, a lot of stuff is going to be, I'm agreeing with you. I think we actually will. And there's a book that came out about 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. I've forgotten the author, sadly. But it was a book about what humans are going to become. Right now, humans, obviously, as you know, are called Homo sapiens. The name of the book is Homo Deus, meaning that we'll eventually become demigods. To your point, that humans will eventually link together with AI and robots and become demigods and not die unless we have a massive accident, have our consciousness in some kind of box or some kind of black box in a machine, body replacements, right? Like a black box for an airplane. We'll have a black box inside our artificial body. So if we have an accident, the black box survives. That's where our brain is, our consciousness is. We pop it out and put it into the body and keep moving. So even if we have accidents, it doesn't matter. So that kind of thing. So yeah, I think you're right. And then how do we define consciousness? At what point, when my last neuron is no longer human, at what point am I human or not human anymore? Or does it matter? This is a time for us to come up with these answers. That's why I bring this stuff up. So yeah, which one is which?
The trend is global. According to Alice, around the world, falling birth rates are increasingly driven by a relationship recession amongst young adults, which leads us to the question, have humans become like pandas who just refuse to reproduce?
And part of that is true. Part of that is true. Yes. Michael brought up a couple questions. What happens when you have a few sex robots in your home and they start plotting against you? I'll go one step further, Mike. What happens when you buy the sex robots, right? You purchase them, you own them now. And to Peace Logic's point, when do they become sentient? When can they tell you no? When is it no longer consensual? Or do you do the doom thing where the sex robots cannot have that? They're all just robotic. In which case, is that what I want? I'm assuming if you want a sex robot, you want one that is, right? You want one that is as human as possible, I would assume, right? So you'd want one like that. Does that get it to where they become conscious? In which case they can say no. Wait, but I bought you. You can't own me. That's slavery. What? Wait a minute. Now all of a sudden I threw my money away? Wait a minute. Yeah. And to your other point, what happens when the people now I'm in trouble. What happens when the robots we assign to take care of the old people say, we're not doing it. We don't want to. We don't know, Michael. We don't know. I wish there was a good answer. We are going to have to find an answer for that because right now we don't have that. So, yes.
Now, it's long been my opinion, though I've done no research on this, that the reason pandas don't breed in captivity is that zookeepers keep feeding them bamboo. And let's be serious, that's not going to be easy to digest. And the zookeeper wouldn't be in the mood either if he'd eaten a 2x4 for lunch.
True.
One of the interesting things that Alice Evans has found is that in countries all over the world, a wide political gap has opened up between young men and young women.
Politics.
John Byrne Murdoch covered this a few months ago in the FT, where he writes that tens of millions of young people who occupy the same cities, workplaces, classrooms, and even homes no longer see eye to eye politically.
At all. Yep.
In the US, Gallup data shows that after decades where the sexes were each spread roughly equally across liberal and conservative worldviews, women aged 18 to 30 are now 30 percentage points more liberal than their male contemporaries.
And you've watched that there, and this is more of a woman thing than a male thing. More women are saying, I don't want to pair bond with a guy who isn't left enough. Right? And don't get me wrong, you have every right to have your preferences as you see fit. No judgment on you. You want a left-leaning man? Good on you. You want a right-leaning man? Good on you. All good. All I'm saying is, since there are so fewer left-leaning men, if you want a left-leaning man, you've just lessened your odds of finding that man you're going to pair bond with. You've lowered your odds. Doesn't mean you can't find him. You've lowered your odds. So, yeah. So, again, if a woman decides to not pair bond, she's not going to have kids. That's how that works.
And possibly more surprisingly, that gap took just 6 years to open up.
That's crazy.
German data and British data also show a similar gap between increasingly conservative young men and progressive young women. He writes that in Poland last year, almost half of men aged 18 to 21 backed the hard-right Confederation Party, compared to just a sixth of young women of the same age.
When men become unhappy, they want to put the armband on. That's how that works. Why do you think I spend so much time focusing on unhappy men? When women are unhappy, don't remember, there's unhappy women too. Clearly, they're not having kids. They're unhappy. I get that. But unhappy women complain on TikTok. Unhappy men put on the armband. We have to fix this problem, or it is going to be or I would say you need to invest in armbands, because that's going to be a thing. That's how that works. We see it everywhere. We see it everywhere. So it's an issue that we have to fix. So, yes. All righty.
Similar political divisions can be seen all over the world, where studies show that the political divide between genders has grown massively for those under the age of 30, while older age groups remain evenly matched. And the political division between the genders is particularly wide in China and South Korea.
Think of that.
Studies show
that's not just America, that's everywhere. Unhappy young men put on the armband. It's what they do every single time. We have to fix this. I would like them to not put the armband on. I'd like them to not. So yes. Guys, before we keep going, I'm going to grab a couple more, obviously. But please remember, click the button known as like. Share this, repost this if you would. I appreciate it. Please do so. And of course, follow me on Facebook, on X, and on Rumble. All of them matter. Please jump on board if you can.
That young men have become more conservative and young women more liberal. That doesn't mean that falling fertility is due to a shift in women's preferences. Alice writes in her blog that while right and left both assume that men would love to have more kids, but fertility is being dragged down by women, surveys show that women have a greater preference for having children than men. It is possible that politics is having the same effect on young people as a high-fiber diet is having on pandas.
Yep. And so Roger says, Larry, as soon as these women find out dude is loaded, she be trying to have dude's baby. That's sometimes true. But again, that's limited to your men, right? If you're, because again, you have to be loaded relative to that woman, right? So that means if you're looking for just the top 10% of men as an example, well, then great, they can have it. Elon Musk, great idea. But again, that limits the amount of women. How many women is that man going to sleep with and have babies with, right? If you're Elon Musk, 13. Well, that's about it, right? That's right, if you're Elon Musk. So there's no doubt there are women who think just like that. Of course there are. But not all women, obviously. But women who are. But then that group of women is limiting their men. There's only certain men who are loaded. And then if the women themselves are making their own money, they're less impressed. If you're a woman making 6 figures, you're not impressed by a guy making 6 figures. You're making 6 figures. You're like, whatever, nice, but whatever. You get making 7 figures now because I'm making 6. You got to make 7 or 8. Very few men make 7 figures or 8 figures. I mean, very few make 6. So very few. And if you're looking under 30, the vast majority of men under 30 do not make 6 figures. I mean, there's maybe 1% make over 6 figures if you're under 30. Well, now I'm a 29-year-old woman and I'm making a bunch of cash. I'm not going to date somebody under 30. I got to find that cash. I'm going to date somebody who's 40. Okay, that person might make enough cash that impress me. So again, if that's your issue, yeah, I'd buy that. Sure. Peace Lodge, thank you for the $1 over on Rumble. Thank you for the rant. Blade Runner 2049 is a great example of an AI love story. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And there was a little twist in it too, which was kind of good. There was a twist in the movie, so that was good.
Interesting fact is that in the United States, while the overall fertility rate has fallen, women over the age of 30 are having more children than they did in the 1990s.
Yes, older and older.
It's only younger women who are having fewer children. And even that decline is concentrated amongst teenagers, where teenage pregnancy has almost entirely disappeared in the developed world.
Mm-hmm.
There are some positives associated with waiting longer to have children. According to The Economist,
that is an issue. Waiting longer is an issue. Shelley says, I got a $7 million contract from my boss. Suddenly he had a bunch of babies all over town. To your point, Roger, I think Shelley is validating your point. Yes, Shelley is absolutely you're validating your point. She's on board with you. Yes.
each year a woman goes without having a child, her expected lifetime earnings increases.
Yep.
A woman who has her first child in her 30s can be expected to earn more than twice what she would have earned had she had her first child at age 22.
She makes more cash.
While most politicians and policymakers are ignoring their country's demographic problems,
yes, it's
some
my problem.
countries are offering to pay their citizens to have children.
Yep.
The Economist writes that working class women's fertility is more responsive to financial circumstances than that of their richer peers. Zhejiang, a province in China, is offering newly married couples a lump sum, but only if the bride is below the age of 25.
See that?
In Russia, women who have a child before they turn 25 will soon be exempt from income tax.
Look at that. Look at that. So if I'm an older dude, I got to find me a 24-year-old Russian, knock her up, and then put my money through her so I get no income tax. See that? There we go. Oh, good. That's how I get rid of my income tax.
Hungary offers a similar benefit to mothers who have their first child before 30. The reason that these incentives are being offered to young women is that women who start having children young tend to have more children over their lifetime.
Makes sense.
According to Alice Evans, while these baby bonuses may be well-meaning, they are putting the cart before the horse when a growing share of young people are without a partner to begin with.
Yes.
So what is the driving factor then? Why?
Roger says, the armband, what is that? Heroin? No. It's the armband that's red with a white circle and then that black kind of crossy symbol on it. That's the armband, right? It's red. It's got a white circle on it. And it's got that like kind of weird crooked cross symbol on it. That's the armband. They put that armband on. It may have a different symbol on it sometimes. It could have a different color sometimes. But it means the same. Like it's the same meaning, even though it may look a little different. Meaning's the same. Meaning is the same. That's the armband. So yes.
Why are we seeing a worldwide decline in coupling, political division between young men and women, and why are young people staying at home rather than meeting up with each other all over the world?
Yep.
The last two questions there possibly gave you a hint to the answer to the question. The huge change that took place in recent years all over the world that changed how people interact with each other and changed the media they consume was the proliferation of smartphones and social media.
Bingo! The problem is social media. Yes. Larry, are you going to blame social media? Yes, I am. Yes, I'm going to blame social media. Yes, I am. Yes. And he gives actual data. He actually will provide us in 2 seconds here with some actual data showing that's true. Yes. It is social media. That is the biggest issue. Because now people look and say, wait a minute, I don't want that because there's something else out there. I don't want that because there's something else there. I don't need to hang out with him because I can get someone else on social media. I don't need to hang out with her because I can get someone else on social media. I don't need this because I can get that. And I got to compare myself. I can't take this girl. There's models out there. I need to model. I don't need her. She's not a model. Look at her. She's a model. A woman. I don't need him. I another guy. He got a yacht. So each one of the people now are looking and going, I don't need that anymore. What do I care? Or the reverse. I'm some guy who goes, I can't compete with that. I'm not going to bother. I'm some woman who goes, I can't compete with that. Why bother? So now you have women checking out because like, I can't compete with Instagram models who all filtered up and their whole job is looking hot. I can't compete with that. I'm not going to bother. Or a guy who goes, this guy's taking women to Dubai. I can't take women to Dubai. I'm done. And all of a sudden now people start checking out and or have expectations that are utterly unrealistic. This is why we're not pair bonding. But not just that. Okay, now I'm with somebody. I'm pair bonding with somebody. And I still got that phone. And I got somebody texting me in my DMs, whatever. I'm in somebody else's DMs. Yeah. This is the problem. This is the issue. And not just that, it's really easy to stay home now.
According to Alice's research, geographical differences in the decline of coupling amongst the young broadly track mobile internet usage.
Bingo.
John Byrne Murdoch.
It tracks mobile internet usage. That is the only thing that covers every single area, every single time. Which that add on top of it, the local customary issues, whether it's education, whether it's something else, whatever the case may be, money being made, whatever, add all of that together. And what does it equal? Women not pair bonding. That's us not coupling.
Writes in the FT that this is consistent with research showing that social media usage has driven the spread of liberal values worldwide, mostly amongst women.
Yes, what affects them not being with men. Yes, keep going.
One of the few parts of the world where marriage rates have stayed high is South Asia. Alice writes that in South Asia, caste and kinship networks are secured through marriage, which remain vital for status and social inclusion. Young women are constantly being asked by their relatives, when are you getting married?
Yep. And that was my point why I said, eventually we will either have the robots or we're going to fall back to family. There's only two choices. We're either the robots are going to come and or we're going to start falling back and saying, hey, uncle, can you help me find a wife? Hey, uncle, can you help me find a husband? Hey, auntie, hey, grandma, help me find a husband, help me find a wife. That's going to, and eventually they're going to be like, yes, let's work together. Let's do this. It's that or robots or some combo. Because what we got now, that ain't going to work. And I think you're going to find men and women much more open to this, much more open to, uncle, find me somebody. Aunt, find me somebody. Grandma, find me somebody. Come on. I need somebody. I want to have a relationship. You're going to find that, I think, happening. That's not tomorrow. That's down the road. It's that of robots. That's it.
Chart shows that not only is mobile internet usage lower in South Asia than in the rest of the world, but on top of that, the gap between male and female internet usage is particularly wide.
Yep. So let me grab a couple of these. Phil says, tradition. Yes, we will either go to tradition or total tech. One or the other. Tradition, you're right. Yes, that's very true. Peter says, Larry, 2/3 of all solo travelers are female. Yeah, they're unhappy and they think the problem is so many women. And this is a psychological problem in general. And you can see it's, to your point, it's more women than men. The reason why so many people want to travel is they're just trying to escape. They're unhappy. It's a common thing. Now, you might go, but no, Larry, I've always wanted to go see Paris or something. Yeah, that's once in a while. That's obvious. Many people have a place they want to go or enjoy something, or they want to go skiing. Sure. But if someone is a serial traveler, they're unhappy. They won't tell you that. They will tell you they're happy because they travel so much. They're not. They're unhappy. There's nothing at home for them to stay to. They're unhappy. That's why they keep going. They will tell you I'm wrong. No, Larry, my life. If a woman tells you my life is great, I travel so much, she's unhappy. And I would, if anyone thinks that's not true, if I sit down with that woman for literally 2 minutes, she will be in tears. I'll ask her some questions and she'll break the facade and she'll start crying. I know it's what I do. That's not how that works. If a woman is always traveling, particularly by herself, she's not happy. And she will pretend that she is. And she'll act like it. She's just running away from her problems. It's not true. Men do it too, but men tend to go into the cave. Women tend to go out. If a guy doesn't come out, the opposite for the guy. If a guy's like, I'm totally happy sitting in my house, he's not happy either. But his escape is internal. A woman's escape is external. It's a different way of doing it. And I got general rule. Don't come up with the all police. Some people are different, of course, but that's generally speaking, it's true. So yes, there's a problem with that though. Women then get accustomed to traveling. And if you ever seen, I don't know if any of you are on dating apps, the amount of dating apps, I help some men pick women to date. One of the things I do also, and what I tell them always is, if a woman has travel in her profile as the top 1, 2, or 3, she is undateable. Do not date her. I'm not joking. And someone like, what? But I love travel. If you put that in your dating profile, top 3, you are running everywhere. You are running everywhere and you expect him to be doing the same thing. And he don't want to do that shit. No man wants to take you traveling all day long. They don't want to. They want to be with you. They'll be traveling all the time. You're going to be unhappy. Let that woman go. Do not date her. And some of you are no mad, but if you're a woman right now and you're on a dating app and you hear this, pull that shit out of your dating profile. I'm not saying you shouldn't travel. You should. But what a man hears when he sees travel is, you may take you places. I thought we we're going to have a relationship. And a woman thinking, well, the problem though, to your point, Peter, is a woman gets accustomed to that type of lifestyle. So she's accustomed to it. Good on you, woman, great. But there are very few men. Again, you've just limited the amount of people that you can pair bond with. Because very few women want to see you traveling all over the place. Very few men do. Men work. Men have things at the place. They don't want to do that. They just don't. I know it sounds sexist. I don't care. It's just true. They don't want to. So yes, that's it's not a thing. So you're, again, limiting everything. Yes. Matt says, I love retreating to my cave with my cats and playing some video games or watch movies. Yes, that's very common. Men retreat into the cave. Women go out. Women go out. That's how that works. 100%. So yeah. I actually say that. I tell people that. Yes. Roger says 100% of cannot compete. So why bother? A lot of people. That's one of the reasons why men are checking out. That's one of the reasons why men are checking out. It's because like, I can't compete. Why bother? There's going to be someone, she's going to judge me against some guy who has more resources than me or travels more or does whatever, or is hotter than me or has more muscles than me or whatever is the thing she cares about, right? Each woman is different. Whatever she values, she's going to judge me against some guy who has more than that because she goes on Instagram and sees the guy who's better at something and now I'm going to lose. Now, I'm not saying that's true every time. Some women, that's utterly true. Some women, it's not. The problem is if you're a man who's been dating, you just need 2 or 3 women who are that way to make you feel that way. And you go, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to spend my time, money, energy, get my heart broken. So some women can go, you're not tall enough, smart enough, don't have enough money, don't have enough status, don't have enough muscles or whatever. Again, whatever is her important to her. You don't have enough because this guy does. He's in my DMs. So I'm going to go there. Just 2 or 3 women who do that to you. And you're like, I'm out. Particularly if you're younger. You get hurt like that. So you become one of 2 things. You check out or you become a jerk. One of those 2. Absolutely right. Yes. I think it's absolutely true. It is a problem. It is a problem. So yeah. Roger says, damn, woman, we just got back from Jamaica. Now you want to go to Paris? Damn. Yes. It's kind of funny, but yeah. That's an issue. So that's what I'm going to bring this up. This is the issue.
Research, 46% of American teens say that they use the internet almost constantly.
There we go.
From 24% of teenagers who said the same a decade ago.
That's a difference right
Young
there.
men and women watch different content and report that they would often prefer to stay at home on social media or playing video games rather than going out and spending time with friends.
Now that's the second part. So now I have a choice. I'm a young woman and I haven't found a bunch of men that I want to be with. And the men that I did want to be with, they were jerks and used me. And I had a situationship or they we had a hookup and that was it. They never called me again. It ghosted me, whatever, right? So now I'm like, why bother? Men are jerks. What do I care? I'd rather sit at home and make TikToks, watch TikToks, hang out, and watch Netflix. Why would I want to go out and get hurt by some jerk dude or meet guys who I don't like, right? Number one. And number two, I'm a guy. I go out. I don't get any attention. I'm invisible from most women because I'm not the guy who, has all the goodies that they want. Or I get used and abused and then they dump me. Well, I don't want to do this anymore. I'll just stand and play video games. So I think you're seeing more and more of that. And it's easier for that. And now you think that you have people with you because you get likes and clicks on your video. One more reason why I do this live is because our parasocial relationship for many of us actually isn't, because I'm actually communicating with you directly. You're communicating with me directly. You're communicating with each other directly, live. That's happening. And when I go on events, at least the entire chat, at least a quarter of the chat, at least I've actually met. And you guys know that you've actually met me. At least a quarter of the chat has actually met me. So I try to make this a real connection in some way, shape, or form. But for the vast majority of people who are on TikTok or Facebook or YouTube, as we talked about, this is just some video some guy put up. When you're watching it, that guy's doing something else. He doesn't know who you are. He's never met you, never will meet you, doesn't care about you at all. And you're connecting, thinking you have some kind of connection. There's no connection. It's all in your head, right? It's all in your head. And he's saying that too. So now I'm at home watching some video of some guy who I've never met, never will meet, doesn't know who I am. There's no interaction. And I think he's funny and cool and likes me because whatever. No. Those of you know, I try my best even to respond to you on YouTube. Like when you put I try to respond. That's me responding to you, right? I try to respond to you when I can. I don't always have enough time. I try to respond because I want to have some type of connection. Most people think they have connection. That's that robophobia thing. They think that they have a connection, but they don't. And then when things go wrong and they want help or assistance and there's nobody there, they're blown away. Because here's what so many people are doing. And usually for women, it's social media. Usually for men, it's gamers, gamer friends. Usually. There's exceptions, obviously. But now you're in trouble and you're asking for something and there's nobody there. So what have you done? You've ignored your actual family for your TikTok friends or your gamer friends. You've ignored actual people in your neighborhood, people in your community for your TikTok friends or your gamer friends. And then all of a sudden now, you don't have anybody. You thought you did. Now you're extra devastated. Now you're crushed. Now you are crushed because you thought you had somebody and you had nobody. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely true. So it's a big deal. Matt says, Larry, if you ever come to the old Midwest, I'd love to meet you. You can say I'd never come to New York or probably never. Yeah, look, the reality of it is I'm considering doing a national tour either this year or next year. I'm considering doing one. I haven't done one ever, so I'm considering doing it. I have not been able to make travels upstate like I used to. I still go up, but not as much as I used to. I had to cancel my last one because of other stuff going on, but I'm gonna get back upstate again. I go upstate every single year, multiple times. So I will be going back upstate New York. I'm going to California in the summer, I think. Yeah, twice in the summer. Palm Springs is one spot, and then Sacramento is another. So I'll be out in those areas. I'll let you know where I'm going to be when the time comes. If any of you live in those areas, I will be doing it. I'm actually probably going to do it. I've talked to my daughter about it. We may do a drive, actually. Just her and I might do a drive. I may grab some of the guys here and do an actual drive across the country and do like a couple of states, do some stops. I might do that. I'm considering that now, so we'll see how that works. But there is a way you can help me do that. You know what that is, right? Like, comment, share, because then I get more cash coming in. Then I can not work. Because remember, I don't have a job. I'm a consultant. If I'm not working, I'm not making money. So if I take a week or two off to go travel, I'm just losing money. So if you could like, comment, and share, that would help me to make some more cash as this grows and grows and grows. If you do want to become a member, that also helps. Click that join button, or on Rumble, click that subscribe button. Both are good, but no matter what, you can just click the like button. That's all that matters.
40 years ago, Neil Postman wrote the book Amusing Ourselves to Death.
40 years ago.
The idea behind the book came from a talk Postman gave on George Orwell's book, 1984. In his talk, he argued that the contemporary world in the mid-1980s was better reflected by Aldous Huxley's Brave New World rather than by George Orwell's 1984. In Brave New World, the public were oppressed by their addiction to amusement rather than state violence. Postman saw television's entertainment value in the 1980s as being equivalent to the fictitious drug Soma in Brave New World, which citizens took, exchanging their rights for entertainment.
So we don't have to go further in this. The point I brought up was now we're being pacified by social media and our phones, so we don't go out and do things. That's the key. That's the one issue. That's the biggest issue. So Sarah says, I would love to see more of the world, but I'm a homebody and I'm okay with not traveling. That's okay. Remember what I mentioned before about happiness. The happier you are, the less you seek pleasure, right? The less you, because you're happy. The less happy you are, the more you seek pleasure, particularly temporary pleasure, the more you do so, right? Everyone seeks pleasure. Everyone does, but the more. So Sarah, to be forward, if I had to guess, you're probably pretty happy in your life. If you're pretty happy, you don't have a desire to always leave. You probably still want to leave sometimes, by places you want to see, things you want to do. You probably do travel here or there, but you're not actively seeking pleasure every day because you're probably pretty happy. That will be my assumption from the short back and forth we've had, right? If you weren't happy, you'd probably be seeking more pleasure. Doesn't mean you're perfectly happy. Nobody is. But again, the less pleasure you're seeking, generally speaking, the happier you are. The more you're seeking pleasure, the less happy you are. So, and traveling every weekend or traveling all the time, you are not happy. You are not happy. Yes. And that's an issue. Shredan says, sorry, I've been late ignoring Larry because I busied myself with family and friends. The best reason to ignore me, Shredan. The best reason. Thank you. Your advice isn't a sustainable business. You advise isn't the same business, but I try to help it grow. Sure. Thank you. Every little bit counts. 100%. Yes, absolutely. We're trying because I do want to make sure that I get out as much as I can to meet you guys at least once. I try to. I know I do. Some of you I've met many times, right? So yeah, I've even met Roger. Yes. Yes. So many of you I've met here or there. So I appreciate it. Guys, I'm going to ask you a special favor. I know I've asked you very, very often to join and become a member because the panel show is coming up. I'll be putting out the people. I have one already set. I'll have two more I'll put up in the next couple of days. See if you guys can make it. But you guys know that the algo loves a comment after the live, right? A comment after the live, right? So after this is done, after it's done, please put in a comment. And the question I want you to answer, if you don't mind, is how do you think AI will deal with the male-female issues, relationships? How will AI deal with relationships coming up here? Is it going to be the robots? Is it not gonna? How's it going to deal with relationships coming up here? That's, I think, a big question here now. Well, if you don't want to answer that one, that's a good one. But if you don't want to answer that one, you could also answer, if you want to, do you even care about the fertility rate? Does it even matter to you? So either if you do care about it, what do you think AI is? If you don't, why don't you care about it? Does it matter to you at all? Either one of those would be great. And of course, remember, if this is not live and you're watching it later on, you're going to see videos pop up here. Please click up on one of those because the algo loves that a lot. I will see you all